What is up, guys? Doing another one down solo. Today we're taking a look at Hoxton Revenge. So I've already done this run before at a prior point in time, if I'm not mistaken. However, I am revisiting it under a new set of constrictions that I'm going to start putting under probably the greatest majority of my runs. Maybe except for runs that I deem it almost physically impossible to do so, even though, knowing me, I'm too hard-headed and I probably won't. And so that's why these runs have been taking a little bit longer to push out, is because I've now, as you've known, most of my recent runs have usually been under the constriction of no downs, and even more recently I decided that I was going to undertake the task of doing not only no downs but also utilizing no converts, which has definitely been a bit of a change. A difficulty increase in the sense that let's see, how's the best way to put it? Well, just simply constantly having pretty much all the enemy attention on me at all times is kind of pain in the butt, to be quite honest. It gives me quite a bit of grief at certain times. However, due to the fact that I'm not utilizing converts and that I'm not using any sort of skills in Fugitive, as far as, Messiah and things like that goes, it definitely frees up a lot of skill points to make very effective offensive builds. So that's basically what this build is kind of centered around, is being a lot stronger in terms of offense as opposed to defense. Of course, I'm just trying to bag some evidence up here at first. I also wanted to go ahead and plank up that window in the room I was in order to shields getting kind of rude there for a moment. Anyway, but so that way I could hang out in the safe room without fear of snipers obliterating me while I was hiding. Of course, I'm going to litter first aid kits around. Not necessarily to use them to heal myself. I try to avoid using the first aid kits to actually regain health. Instead, use them to cover myself in case I get downed, or in case I would have gotten down in that circumstance, utilizing uppers. In most circumstances, it's generally better to not use the first aid kits to heal myself. Otherwise, I just end up using way too many. So, interesting thing to note about this build, like I was saying before, I definitely want to make more use of offensive skills, and just being able to kill enemies just as fast as they can kill me. It's definitely a very central part of this build, especially since I could spend points to get Hostage Taker, but then all the points I'm spending to get 2 Hostage Taker would in effect be wasted, because I'm not going to be using converts, so having convert skills would be completely useless, and then shield was completely resisting my HE shots right there for some reason. It happens at several points in this heist, and it's quite aggravating. Regardless, it's definitely... I lost my train of thought entirely. Oh well. This is definitely geared more to be offensive. Oh, right. I can't get Hostage Taker in order to get some passive health regen. I mean, I could, but that's a lot of wasted points just to have the health regen, whereas I could put that into other things in order to get, whether it be extra ammo efficiency for guns that would normally be as ammo efficient, or whether it be, to pick up Unseen Strike to get some extra help with crits and things of that nature. Which Unseen Strike does have a lot of hidden potential. I believe it's, generally looked down on by the community, who knows quite a bit about the game. But for the purposes that I use it for, it's actually really handy, considering I do a lot of out-of-cover play, especially on maps like this. Unseen Strike isn't going to be nearly as handy on lower difficulties where you're just running around Rambo style and killing things, which is how I play lower difficulties too, don't get me wrong. I mean, on Overkill, if you slap Anarchist even onto your suit build and then run an auto shotty, you can run around and kill things and be nearly invincible, honestly. But in terms of how I have to play these types of heists, on this difficulty without the usage of converts. Unseen Strike actually provides a good amount of extra damage to be utilized. And as far as if HUDlist doesn't lie to me, then Unseen Strike is still procced if I get shot at but dodge, meaning I don't take armor or health damage. I don't believe that used to be the case. I believe it used to be any sort of suppression at your character would basically cause Unseen Strike to not work, which made it a almost garbage skill. But it was changed at some point, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know exactly when. Regardless, it's a pretty good skill to boost the amount of crits that you get, and that's where most of the damage from the Yzma is going to come from, is the combination of overkill and crits. So having the 90-something, or not the 90-something, like the 65% total combined crit chance is really useful. I was very scared of just getting cheesed by snipers right here, so I went ahead and used a first aid kit to revive myself so they wouldn't just one-shot me. Although my dodge chance is really high, it would just take one moment of getting unlucky for the snipers to ruin the run. So I did choose to use Rogue for this particular build. I have an identical build, or a nearly identical build, that I use for with Sicario for heists that require more objective pushing. So I'll probably switch back and forth between the builds. I have been using Kingpin on these runs, or attempting to anyway. A lot of my recent long breaks between videos, particularly where I've just been pushing out build videos recently, has been because I've been experimenting, trying to find the best loadouts for these types of heists. I can't really use Kingpin for challenges of this Accord. I mean, I probably could. However, it's just a massive pain in the butt, because even though I can protect myself for the most part from enemies under a lot of normal circumstances, and, you know, use the injector to protect myself, it takes a dozer to ruin a run, and that's really all there is to it. And if I get swarmed by 2 dozers, if I can't kill them in the span of, you know, like a second to a second and a half, I get pretty wrecked. I'm pretty sure that enemy caught me searching something on Google on my phone for like a split second. I pulled my attention away because I was like, oh wait, been intending to look this thing up. I need to go ahead and ask Google to do that for me. So on my well, I won't talk about the other build right now. I guess that's not really important. I should just talk about what's going on here. So this heist is pretty straightforward. It's just a holdout heist. I have been working on some other projects that I've been doing really well on, but then I realized that how long it's been since I put out a run video. My last one being Rats. I was trying to put a shape charge here, but I saw this enemy was coming through and just decided to divert my attention away. But yeah, the last actual run video I had done was Rats, with no down and getting all the loot bags, except for the one that hit the helicopter and fell, which was a tragedy. I'm still salty about it, regardless. I definitely wanted to go ahead and put out another run video that wasn't just centered around a build, considering that was the whole reason I even started this channel. So like I said, most of my new challenges are going to, or not really new challenges, but most of my runs from here on are going to be centered around no downs and no converts. It's definitely, like I said, it's definitely a challenge. The biggest challenge being not really killing enemies, but doing objectives while trying to take care of enemies and not die simultaneously. I believe this would honestly be easy enough to do without converts if I allowed myself to go down. However, the combination of no downs and no converts, the two don't coincide very well together, simply because the converts take enemy attention off of you, so you don't get cheesed by some enemy when you're not paying attention for a split second, and then, you know, or letting yourself get down gives you enough cushion to get caught off guard a few times during the heist. So that, you know, because all the enemy attention is going to be on you if you're not using converts, then, you know, it's okay to blink and, you know, get caught off guard. Because that's really all it takes sometimes. One bad decision, or just being unlucky. Which is probably one of the most infuriating parts about doing these runs, is sometimes it really does feel like it's more almost luck dependent than it is skill dependent. Not always. Of course, I'm running Rogue, so, you know, in that aspect it is kind of luck dependent. But, you know, we've talked, or I've talked many times about the decision making that you have to do whenever you're running rogue, and the calculated decision making that you have to do. So although it does have the RNG aspect to it, it also to a certain extent, it falls to you as the player to make the appropriate decision, not to put yourself in bad circumstances that you know will probably not pay out. And one of the hardest things for me, as I've progressed from doing the standard, one down solos when I first started the channel, which was just, doing it I guess I'd call it the old-fashioned way, using fugitive skill trees in the Revenant tree and, all that good stuff. And as I've progressed to doing these challenges, has really been changing the way that I work and think as a player, in terms of I can sacrifice this down to push this objective to, okay, well, I can't push this objective anymore without dying, so I have to kind of find a way to utilize my converts to work my way around it. I blew myself up right there purposely with my HE Judge so I could trigger Unseen Strike, because I have the basic version instead of the Ace, which I actually would pick up the Ace if I could, because it gives a longer bonus and allows you to go more time without taking damage and having the extra crit skills. So I did shoot myself purposefully there to trigger that, to break my armor. Anyway. But going from being able to push objectives and sacrificing downs to do so, to not being able to sacrifice downs to do so, but utilizing my converts in an intelligent way to distract the enemies to do so, to now I can only rely on patience and my own ability to kite and guide the enemies around the map. However, kiting enemies around the map is now significantly easier, just due to the fact that converts don't let them get hung up anywhere. Enemies do still have a tendency to hang around certain objective areas, just to leave, 2 or 3 spawns there in case, I guess just so the entire map isn't empty except for where the player is hanging out at, which makes sense. But all in all, this heist wasn't too terribly difficult. I think this was my first attempt at this particular run. Pretty sure it was. Yeah, this was my first attempt with this, on this heist with this run. A lot of the heists I've been attempting in my spare time trying to get down pat have been significantly harder, and I wanted to do a harder one to, come out of the gates going strong, but I guess this is just a good way to kind of say, hey, I'm working on stuff, so if it takes me time to make halfway decent content like this, please be patient with me. I usually try to put something out every day or every other day, but here for the past while, it's kind of my upload schedule has been a little wonky. So earlier you saw me throw the flashbang out the window whenever the smoke was there. That was just to prevent enemies from rushing in on me when I couldn't see them. A big problem I've noticed whenever I'm hanging out in one position and getting having a smoke grenade thrown at me, is that enemies will typically try to rush in after the smoke grenade comes in. Of course, that's just tactics part of the enemies. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Smoke grenades usually mean enemies are going to swarm in. Not always, but sometimes it does. Also, you may have noticed little weird crosshairs things that are popping up on my screen. I did download an enhanced crosshair feature because it looked cool. That basically lets you know by the shape and by the color if you got a body shot, a crit shot, a kill shot, and things of that nature. I'll probably keep that in my list of mod things down at the bottom. This isn't necessary information for me to know. I just kind of like seeing it, like, oh look, I got a crit right there. This has next to no impact on my gameplay whatsoever. And the knowledge isn't even really all that helpful, because honestly all I care about is if the enemies die or not. I was one bag short here when I was counting these. I was a little disappointed. I was like, oh man, I missed one, no. But the enhanced crosshairs are kind of cool, just to know whether or not you might have gotten a crit, or whether you killed them with a body shot or whatever. It's also pretty handy for experimenting with certain things, like trying to recently I've been messing around with a build trying to get it to where I can one-shot body shot a dozer with Thanatos with solo, like without any sort of boosts from having teammates or things of that nature. Gosh, I'm pretty sure I did the calculations and it is possible, but it's like super circumstantial. But anyway, then using the enhanced crosshairs to, test that out and be sure that I didn't like get a crit and that I actually did just get a raw body shot and things of that nature. Regardless. I might actually upload that build video pretty soon. No, I think other people have done that build video before, actually. I haven't seen them, but I think Jimmy was telling me the other day about a video he had watched that had something similar, like doing a high damage Thanatos build. And I was like, oh, that sounds good. I wonder if you can like one-shot body shot doses with it and blah blah blah. So I started playing with it, or messing around with it, but I haven't actually seen the videos. So maybe I won't. If they already exist, it could be kind of redundant for me to do so. So I wanted a good helicopter spawn, particularly the one in the area I was looking at. However, fortune was not on my side, and I got the objectively worst helicopter spawn possible on this heist. I went ahead and used this first aid kit because I didn't want to get cheesed by a sniper as I was running out the door. I hate tasers. God, I hate tasers so much. I was trying to think of the best way possible for me to go about moving to and fro the helicopter. I had the better half of my first aid kits left, and I actually spent most of my first aid kits moving around trying to get to the stupid helicopter and get all these bags in, because it's so darn inconvenient to try to move around to this location that I had to put first aid kits in areas where I knew I was going to be moving from and to, and so I wouldn't die, and it was just kind of a hassle. Just went ahead and decided to grab this bag since I was right here. I think maybe using something like Sicario would have been a bit, maybe not better, but might have helped a bit on this day by way of throwing the smoke over to the over onto the building so that I could cross onto it and throw bags in with minimal interference. Because then, if the smoke is like on the building, I can drop down to getting bullied by shields there for a second. If the smoke is on the building, I can just drop down and tuck inside the building really quickly without really being out of the effects of the smoke for very long, which would be pretty effective. So. However, I just wanted to mess with this rogue build first and foremost. That was kind of my big goal here for this video. I just wanted to mess with the rogue variant as opposed to the Sicario variant. You know, picking up fully loaded and things like that to kind of change the amount of dodge I was having and slightly change the style of play necessary, because I do believe that I'll need rogue versus Sicario on certain heists that just are going to require moving across long distances where the extra dodge will be helpful. Thank goodness I had a first aid kit right there, just getting two-shot by some heavy SWAT somewhere. So one of the So concerning my weapon choice, I did choose the Yzma because of crits and because of the auto shotgun properties. Just having a very high damage output and just being able to cleave through enemies at ridiculous rates. Of course, I chose the HE Judge because the two in tandem had low concealment. Low enough that I could use them to get, only have to use Sneaky Bastard and Low Blow Basic as opposed to Aced. Which definitely saved me, you know, it saves me 6 plus 8. Yeah, it saved me like 12 points to use somewhere, which is an entire high tier skill. So just simply from the points that I would save from getting the basic versions of each would allow me to get like fully loaded aced, for example, or unseen strike aced if I needed the extra points or whatever. And I'll show my build. I should have mentioned this when I first started the video up, but I'll show like the actual build that I'm using at the beginning of the, at the end of the video, in case you guys want to see it. I know Payday 2 Tools has kind of been on the fritz lately, I think due to server overloads, so the weapons haven't been properly loading. Like, the skill builds itself will properly load, but I know some people like to see the weapon customizations that I use so they can emulate it. So I'll definitely throw that at the end. But I find this weapon combo to be pretty useful. It allows me to kill enemies and waves of enemies, or like groups of enemies, without really having to rely on using a grenade launcher. But the grenade launchers are, of course, good for this as well. I have another loadout using the GL40 and the broomstick that's pretty good. I don't know if it's as effective as this loadout simply because of the stunning properties of usually the shotguns deal either a medium or heavy hurt animation, causing enemies to fall over. Of course, the HE Judge does cause enemies to typically fall over or fly through the air or what have you. Again, very glad I had my first aid kit down there. I went ahead and burned this one because I didn't want to run in the house. There weren't any nearby first aid kits. I just wanted to go ahead and get my health up so I wouldn't get two-shot running in. Of course, I was down to only having to move my last bag. I was pretty concerned, though. I was down to my last first aid kit, you know, burning like 7 of them as I'm just trying to move these bags. Oh, I used the kunai instead of the buzzer for these runs because of how much faster the kunai is. So trying to like melee through or like just hit a bunch of enemies and cause them to be stunned really quickly, because I'm not concerned about trying to take them as hostages, so I'm not worried about the damage that the kunai does, which is the only reason I didn't use it in other videos, is just because the buzzer and the electric brass knuckles were better at stunning enemies and then not killing them, so I could get them as converts. But I'm not concerned about that with this particular loadout, because I don't care about taking hostages. I have no pertinent use for them except for extending the time between assault waves, which I wish I would have done in this particular instance, because, or a few moments ago, because it would have allowed me to have a bit more time to move bags. Not an exuberant amount of time, but it would have gave me that little bit extra time I needed. Somehow the taser snuck in behind me while I ran into the volleys very quick. I was impressed, honestly. I wanted to go ahead and thin the assault wave out at least a little bit, get it closer to the end, or at least have a lot of the enemy spawns pulled up to this area before I tried to leave, so that way I wouldn't have to worry about other enemy spawns across the map. I knew there would be, you know, some here and there on the way to the helicopter, but I definitely wanted to minimize that as much as possible just by having all the enemies run up here. Of course, a way better way of doing that would have been to stun a whole bunch of enemies until a large group of enemies was up here, so that way I knew that all the enemies would be here. Instead, I kept killing them, which means they kept resetting at their spawns. But it's hard to keep track of all that, especially when you're running low on supplies, and it's really just a matter of survival. If need be, I would have waited until the next assault wave ended in order to put this last bag in, just to be sure that this run didn't get screwed over, because all it takes, of course, is one very silly mistake for this to get ended. I also did want to place another first aid kit down in this area, but likewise wanted to save the last first aid kit in case I needed a helicopter, because I knew I burned one of them at the helicopter. So I wanted this last one as like an emergency. Oh crap, I'm about to die, I need this right now. If I don't heal myself right now, I will lose the heist, and don't want to lose the run. So it kind of felt like I was going into some semblance of a fade, or at least the enemies were thinning out a bit in terms of not being right, a bunch of them right on top of me. So I decided to go ahead and take my chances at this point now, or at least go and see where all the enemies were at. I did want to take the basement out so I could run up the side ladder, as opposed to trying to run and jump across the top of the roofs. I wasn't able to move to the side of the kitchen counter, or like the wine counter, quickly enough so that I couldn't, so I'd be out of the way of the stupid little flashbang. Definitely gonna double check for snipers right here.
Fuck, it's a sniper. Bitch ass sniper. Fuck ass sniper out. Piggies want some food?
This part was actually incredibly stressful just because I was like, oh my god, no, I almost died. But thankfully I managed to go ahead and get the bags in so I can go ahead and escape even with the freaking crappy spawn. But anyway, guys, I'll go ahead and show you the skill build right after picking my cards. So we'll go ahead and skip to that part right now. So since Payday 2 Tools has kind of been on the fritz, here's the build as promised, using a Yzma that I've modified for stealth but have utilized it for loud, using a silenced HE Judge, kunai knife melee, concussion grenade, rogue perk deck, first aid kit primary. I packed trip mines as secondary. You didn't see me use them a lot, but these are just more for utility. Honestly, I don't really have a use for ammo bags. I could bring a doctor bag just for like the 2 extra charges of healing, theoretically, if I needed them on the heist. So basically, have 14 first aid kits and have 2 doctor bags charged for 16 different, ways of healing. Sentry gun's not going to be very useful. Armor bag, not going to be useful. Body bag case, clearly not going to be useful. ECM jammer might be useful for pushing, like certain objectives and things like that. But anyway, we'll go ahead and take a quick look at the weapon mods so that you guys can see how these are modded up. I'm using the triple aught buckshot, using the short barrel, silent killer, suppressor, concealment boost modifier, auto fire mod, hollow handle foregrip, assault light, using the AK rubber grip, no sight, and using the skeletal stock, and that's for the ISMA. And then for the judge, it's just HE rounds, silent killer suppressor, and concealment boost modifier. And then taking a look at the skill builds, we have uppers aced, got up to overkill aced, and got close by aced so I could get ISMA to its full capacity. Didn't pick up shotgun impact because it's not necessarily, well, it's not necessary, I should say, for getting the full potential out of the ISMA. You could get it, but I really don't feel a gigantic difference between when I do get it and when I don't get it. Since this build relies pretty heavily on crits. Got resilience and bullseye, of course. Got fully loaded aced simply because this particular loadout was made for using rogue, and fully loaded aced allows me to pick up extra concussion grenades. I didn't need to use them too much in this heist, and I probably used less than 6. I think I only used 3 if I'm not mistaken. But still, for longer heists that are going to require more intense periods of movement, being able to spam several concussion grenades and then pick them back up later without needing a throwable asset is definitely going to be useful. Jack of all trades ace, of course, so I can pack 2 deployables and I can interact with them faster, which is useful for first aid kits. Of course, has some dodge skills, unseen strike, and things of that nature. Optical illusions, so that my concealment stays at 3, and I only need the basic versions of Sneaky Bastard and Low Blow. I have Second Wind aced here, and that's really just because I only needed, I'm pretty sure, 3 points to move up to this tier. So instead of spending a number of points I didn't want to spend, I just spent 3 in Unseen Strike aced. It really wasn't that big of a deal to me. And then no points in the Fugitive Tree. Alright guys, so that was the whole shebang. And thank you guys so much for watching.